Right here in the United States, FRC has a brand new edition of our report, Hostility Against Churches in the United States, and is looking back at incidences of religious hostility, religious freedom hostility during the last calendar year of 2024. And here now to share more is Travis Weber. He is the the Vice President for Policy and Government Affairs here at FRC. Travis, welcome back to Washington Watch. Always great to see you.
Jody, thanks for having me on.
All right, so we've got a brand new report out, but first of all, let's start with, I guess, previous iterations of this report. What have we seen in the past, and what trends have we seen in the last few years?
Yeah, so I think if we're looking at the data here that we've gathered in terms of acts of hostility directed at churches in the United States, since we started examining this problem in 2022, we observe largely the same sort of incidents, the same types of incidents, and even generally, the same percentages of attacks being occupied by the same type of incidents. For example, vandalism, predominantly the primary act of hostility that we see occurring, more so than gun-related incidents or other types of attacks. But Jody, what we observe over that time period since 2022 is a marked uptick in the number of incidents. This year there were 415 incidents, and in 2023 there were 485. Now that's a slight dip, both still very high numbers, over 400. And I think it's incredibly concerning in the United States in 2025 that there are this many attacks on places of Christian worship, on churches. And so what we've seen, though, in our reporting is in 2018, we have 50 incidents. The next year, 2019, 83, 55 in 2020, 98 in 2021. And then in 2023, as we measure that, 485, then 415 this past year of 2024 in the calendar year. So we see a significant uptick, even though there was a slight dip this last year.
Is there any idea whatsoever what caused that uptick? I mean, what changed in our country to bring such hostility to Christianity? Do we have any idea?
Yeah, we don't know. We can surmise, but what we examine in this report is publicly available incidents, whether in the news or other public sources, about assaults or hostility that occurred against churches. So we don't know what ultimately happened with these incidents in terms of whether they were prosecuted, to what extent, whether the perpetrators face justice or not. We also do not know in this report about incidents that were not otherwise publicly reported, may have occurred, may have never been reported anywhere, just by anyone. So those incidents are still out there. So Jody, what we did is we gathered that information, analyzed it. So we observed different types of incidents and different motives. Some, the motive is more clear. There was perhaps a grudge, animosity directed at a specific church that the individual may have had some interactions with in the past. In other cases, it may be more random, opportunistic theft or vandalism from youth just with too much time on their hands, and the evil inclinations that we are all subject to finding their way in manifesting in this activity against churches. And so the answer to your question is we don't know, but we want to bring attention and light to the very fact that this is happening in the United States, and it's on the upswing. In 2022, we did observe more hostility on the life issue directed at churches perceived as being pro-life or being representing the pro-life position. Around that was the year the Dobbs case was decided, overturning Roe. That anti-life activism and motive has subsided since then somewhat, but the overall picture, so we observed some smaller trends in the larger picture of what happened, but the overall picture, we don't know. The best that we can do is we look at what's happening, identify different motives at play, but really our aim here is to bring attention to the fact that in a country like the United States, where many of us think of ourselves as Western, freedom-loving, free country, you've got peaceful places of worship being attacked in this way. It's unacceptable, and we need to bring it to a light and address it.
So what do you think this tells us overall about the state of religious liberty here in the United States?
Yeah, I mean, Jody, I think what this tells us is that not everyone out there loves the Christian faith, loves Christians and Christian places of worship that represent the Christian faith. We specifically focused on Christian places of worship, churches, and we recognize there are other similar trends out there. You know, anti-Semitism is a topic we also care about. We want to see that addressed. And there are groups documenting acts of hostility against the Jewish community, but we're focused on the Christian community. So we want to address any activity, any violence directed at people peacefully practicing their faith. But Jody, to our report focused on churches, I think the data show us that you have enough hostility in our culture to find its way into the form of 415 hostile actions directed at peaceful places of worship in the calendar year 2024. That's what we know. That's a problem that's concerning, because it is almost certainly the case that there's more incidents out there that we did not find, that are maybe unreported, and what never found its way into a hostile act, but is represented in the culture out there brewing, perhaps in a person's heart, thoughts, intentions, some hatred that has yet to find its way out. And it's the government's job to prosecute the actions. But I'm pointing this out because what we see on the surface represents something that is under the surface. And so I think anyone who loves freedom and loves freedom of religion in the United States, it's a good time to reflect on this as we approach our 250th birthday of our country next year. We celebrate our Declaration of Independence, celebrate the First Amendment. At a time like this, it's good for us to reflect and say, we need to do more and to attend to the foundations, attend to our own freedom here at home, and cultivate a culture that respects freedom, respects others, peaceful practice and free exercise of religion, and we can live freely in a society together despite our differences of belief.
Travis, where can people find that report real quickly?
They can go to frc.org. It's on our homepage now, and it's under the page with our reports on hostility against churches. Travis
Weber, FRC's Vice President for Policy and Government Affairs, thank you so much for highlighting this new report. It's disturbing, to say the least. I think there is definitely a role for our federal government to step in and help protect, defend the first freedom, the First Amendment that we have. Travis Weber, thank you for joining us today on Washington Watch.
Thank you.